Today I'll be going over part 5 of Larry Geller's book, Unchained Melody. This chapter begins with a quote from William Blake. "You never know what is enough unless you know what is more than enough." Larry says Elvis generally avoided astrology and psychics and fortune-telling, but he was impressed by New Mansions for New Men by Dane Rudyard, a highly influential and multi-talented thinker. Larry includes a passage from the book, but it's really long, so I'm not going to quote it. But basically, the passage says humanity is evolving toward a broader, deeper understanding of itself, recognizing multiple levels of being and striving to grow to higher awareness. It argues that we can't rely only on old beliefs. Instead, we need to rethink and expand our idea of the self to become more inclusive and unified rather than limited by past interpretations. Elvis's interest in Rudyard inspired Larry to find a birthday gift that was meaningful and symbolic of their shared spiritual journey and not just something material. Larry decided a personalized astrological chart from Rudyard would be the perfect meaningful gift, and he had wanted to surprise Elvis with it, but he had to tell Elvis since he needed his details to create it. Elvis loved the idea, and they met with Vernon to gather detailed birth information, not just Elvis's, but that of Vernon, Gladys, and Priscilla's too, in order to create the chart. Larry writes, quote, "One afternoon, the three of us, Elvis, Vernon, and I, sat in the newly created meditation garden. Vernon did his best to pinpoint the time of Elvis's birth, following only moments after the trauma and drama of the stillbirth of his twin Jesse Guerin. As he told the story, he and Elvis grew quiet, each experiencing the loss of Jesse in his own way. Vernon spoke of putting Jesse's tiny body in a little cardboard box away from his mother's sight, and of their fear of losing Elvis too. He recounted how he wrapped up their equally small surviving child and gently placed him in the arms of his paternal grandmother, Minnie May." End quote. Larry says Elvis carried a deep sense of loss and guilt after learning he had been born with a twin who didn't survive. "Why did I live and not my brother? Did I do something to him while we were in my mom's womb?" The clinical term, quote, "twinless twin," describes a deep, lifelong sense of loss, like losing a part of your body, that's hard to fully understand unless experienced. Larry writes, quote, "I always felt that Elvis was living for them both, doing and experiencing everything to excess, and his symbiotic relationship with his mother never lost the intensity of his early childhood." End quote. Elvis told Vernon, "Okay, now, Daddy, think hard. This is important. Did anything unusual happen?" Vernon took a puff of his cigarette and said, "Well, son, I do remember something real unusual did happen that night. It's funny, I haven't thought about it for years, and now it's all coming back. I remember walking outside to have a cigarette. As I looked around, son, I noticed something strange. I looked up, and all around that old house there was this blue light, a weird kind of blue light that lit up the house." Elvis said, "Daddy, you never told me all this before." Vernon told him, "Well, son, I don't know why, but I guess I just haven't thought of that blue light ever since that night. That was a long, long time ago." Larry says even before hearing the story of the blue light, Elvis felt drawn to the color blue and came to see light and color as powerful forces, both physical and spiritual, connecting the body to higher levels of consciousness. Elvis saw healing as part of his spiritual growth, and the color blue became deeply meaningful. He even visualized blue light during meditation instead of white. For centuries, people have believed that color plays an important role in healing the body, mind, and spirit. Edwin D. Babbitt wrote in his book, Principles of Light and Color, quote, "The blue ray is one of the greatest antiseptics in the world," end quote. Larry writes, Elvis had read that the color blue possesses the highest energy of all colors of the spectrum. Its effect on the organism is the most soothing of all. Each of the spectrum colors is simply light of varying wavelengths. Thus, each color has its own particular energy and significance. As a child in Tupelo, Gladys helped heal Elvis's illness through touch and prayer. Larry includes an excerpt from Elaine Dundee's book, Elvis and Gladys. It's an interview Vernon gave to Good Housekeeping where he talks about something that happened when Elvis was 6. Vernon said, "He had developed acute tonsillitis with such high fever he was on the verge of convulsions. Gladys and I were afraid that we were going to lose him. The doctor had given up and told them to call someone else." Vernon said, "My wife and I turned to prayer to the greatest healer of all, God. I do believe in miracles, so that day I prayed to God that he would miraculously heal our child. My wife and I prayed together, and we prayed separately, and by that night I could see that Elvis was better." Elvis's church accepted healing through the laying on of hands as a channel of God's power, making spiritual healing deeply important to him. Larry writes, "As he broadened his knowledge, Elvis came to feel that he possessed the healing touch. Most of those in his entourage refused to believe that Elvis had healing powers and found his sincere belief in healing to be amusing. Though none would say so to his face. They would humor him, pretending to be convinced of his ability to heal. But Elvis wasn't easily fooled. It hurt him deeply that they covertly laughed at him, even when he knew he had helped to heal someone. On one occasion, the child of one of his group. As usual, Elvis approached it from a thoughtful, philosophical perspective. He would often say, "Those who know not and know not that they know not, they are asleep. Waken them." Larry says that Jerry Schilling was open to Elvis's spiritual ideas and even came to believe through experience that Elvis might have a healing ability. Jerry was in bed in severe pain from a motorcycle injury when Elvis came into his room. Elvis said softly, "Jerry, I had a feeling that you weren't able to sleep because of your back pain." Jerry, clearly in pain, said, "I'm afraid so, Elvis." Elvis said, "I'm going to give you a healing treatment, all right? Turn over on your stomach, Jerry. Close your eyes, relax, and leave the rest to me." Elvis placed his hands on Jerry's back, prayed for him, and visualized a blue light. Later, Jerry would say, "The next thing I knew, I woke up the next morning and my back felt fine. No question about it. Whatever Elvis did somehow worked." Elvis also practiced this kind of spiritual healing at home. At Graceland, his grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley, aka Dodger, was elderly and unwell, and she stayed in her room. She was someone Elvis naturally wanted to comfort and help. Dodger often suffered from asthma attacks and dizziness. Faith healing and the laying on of hands had long been familiar parts of her life. One day at Graceland in the spring of 1965, Vernon asked Elvis to check on Dodger. She had been confined to her bedroom for several days because a severe chest cold had made her chronic asthma worse. Elvis said, "Come on, Larry, let's go heal Grandma." Elvis and Larry entered her room, and she was lying in bed in dim light. She looked tired, and she struggled to breathe. Elvis approached her calmly and warmly, smiling as he came to her bedside. Her eyes lit up, and it was clear how proud she was of Elvis and how much she loved him. Elvis said, "Grandma, how are you feeling, honey?" "Weak," Dodger said. "Another one of my spells, Elvis. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm so tired." Larry writes, Elvis was at his grandma's bedside now, just as she had been at his mama's bedside the night of his birth. Elvis sat gingerly on the edge of her bed and pressed his lips to her forehead. Elvis said, "Of course you will. Just don't you worry. We're going to help make you well. Do you mind if Larry and I lay our hands on you and pray for you?" Dodger said, "That'll be fine, Elvis. Y'all do what you like." Elvis told her, "Grandma, just close your eyes and relax every part of your body. Now you might see this blue light, so don't get scared. It only means you're getting healed." Elvis asked Larry to pray while they placed their hands on Dodger's body and visualized healing blue light flowing into her as she rested. Slowly, her breathing slowed down and became regulated, and she appeared to be much calmer. Elvis asked, "How do you feel now, Grandma?" She opened up her eyes and sat up and said, "Well, I do feel a little better, honey. I think I could a bit sleep now." And Elvis kissed her on the forehead. Larry writes, "Did our healing treatment really improve Grandma's health? Just knowing that someone else cares does have a beneficial effect. That's medicine in itself. It would have been difficult to determine how much was Elvis's healing power and how much was Elvis and his mystique. It was always possible the two were interwoven. Maybe Grandma was trying to please Elvis, maybe not." By the next morning, Dodger was up and seemed like herself again. Elvis was happy, and he believed their healing prayer had worked. He said to Larry, "She's all right. She'll probably outlive me." Larry says neither he nor Elvis would realize how prophetic those words were. Larry says Elvis had two sides, a deeply spiritual, generous, sensitive side, and a darker, self-destructive side that caused him great suffering. He frames this as part of being human. Larry writes, "But how far can a soul stretch before it snaps? The reality is that Elvis's life was sadly cut short in part because he remained a prisoner to deep-seated patterns that took root early in his life. Growing up in poverty, Elvis had gone without the foods children crave. Candy, soda pop, cookies, ice cream, hamburgers, and hot dogs were luxuries outside the reach of the Presley family. As with everything in his life, Elvis went overboard to compensate for this deprivation. Thus, he thought nothing of devouring at 4 a.m. several jumbo hamburgers with a large serving of greasy French fries, washed down with Pepsi or Gatorade. Another late-night favorite was a snack of sugary fruit pies smothered with whipped cream. For breakfast, strips of bacon burnt to a frazzle, too many biscuits, and quantities of salt and pepper poured over his food before tasting it. Larry says that coming from health-conscious California, he was surprised by Southern eating habits and how little attention people around Elvis seemed to give to diet and nutrition and health. One morning, Larry arrived at Elvis's Bel Air home because they were going to ride to the studio together. Elvis was about to eat, and he casually talked while seasoning his omelet with pepper. Elvis was so distracted while talking that he kept adding pepper to his omelet, and Larry assumed he would notice and ask the maid for a new one. Larry said, "Elvis, your eggs are black." Elvis smiled and picked up the salt shaker and said, "I know, that's the way I like them." Larry says Elvis stayed fairly healthy through his 20s and early 30s, aside from some weight struggles and some sleep problems. from his busy lifestyle. But now Elvis's unhealthy habits were starting to affect him and causing his weight to climb from 175 pounds to nearly 200 or more. Larry says Elvis's cycles of dieting and sleeping pills and other prescription medications were beginning to seriously harm his health. Between movies, Elvis overate comfort foods at Graceland that the maids would keep stocked, including pies, french fries, biscuits, and other rich foods he enjoyed. Elvis would gain weight during breaks, then wait until the last minute before a movie to diet, and he often relied on diet pills. He often started filming overweight, then slimmed down as the movie continued. While filming Paradise Hawaiian Style, Elvis's co-star Julie Parrish introduced Larry to nutritionist and physical therapist Wilma Miner. Larry began seeing her for weekly deep tissue body work. Then he told Elvis she might be able to help him too. During Elvis's first visit, Wilma evaluated his overall physical condition. She said, "Your intestines are inflamed. When I applied pressure to your abdomen, you really tightened up. You can get away with it now, Elvis. You're only 31. But if this isn't dealt with now, it will only get worse, and in 10 years, you'll be in trouble. All the sugar and salt, hamburgers and french fries will catch up with you one day." Elvis said, "You're the boss. I'll do whatever you say." Wilma questioned Elvis about his diet and advised him to avoid many of his favorites, including soft drinks, starches, sweets, and meat. She also gave him reading material on nutrition. She told him, "You should really fast 1 day a week until that tenderness is gone from your belly, and none of those medications you've been taking." Larry says Elvis kept seeing Wilma for deep tissue massages, but he did not follow her fasting advice and eventually returned to his old eating habits. Wilma was not surprised. She told Larry, "I don't think he'll change. He's like a little boy. He listens, he promises, but he doesn't do as he should. The body doesn't lie." She reminded Larry of something Elvis had said about the power of the mind. She said, "I really feel that he believes that it doesn't matter what he puts into his body as long as he feels the mind controls all. But all those hamburgers and french fries and all the sugar and salt will catch up with him someday." Elvis tried to improve his diet over the years, but always returned to old habits. 10 years later, Wilma's warning came true. Here's a quote from Paramahansa Yogananda that's inserted here. "The stomach is the weakest part of the human machine and often the most abused. When digestion malfunctions owing to overeating or wrong eating, it causes all kinds of troubles in the body. Ordinarily, when you see yourself in your mirror in the morning, you think you are all right. You don't realize that you are carrying many poisons in your system. The body is full of them. If you don't know how to get rid of these poisons and the system can no longer handle them, disease results. In the American diet, protein poisoning from the toxins in undigested protein is usually the most at fault. In the East, the diet is often lacking in protein, but in the West, it is overstocked with protein because you eat too much meat. One of the effects of the undigested protein, in addition to serious consequences such as heart disease and cancer, is that the toxins work on your nasal membrane and make you susceptible to catching colds." Larry writes, quote, "As the 70s wore on, Elvis's reservoir of energy and vitality began to wane, and his physical health worsened. He often felt sluggish and weary, becoming increasingly dependent on prescribed medications to sleep or wake up, and for pain and other health issues. His nightstand resembled a drugstore cluttered with an array of pills, drops, and sprays for his eyes, nose, and throat, atomizers, and various laxatives to ease his twisted, spastic colon." But even though Elvis was struggling with his own health, he still found meaning in helping others, including trying to heal his father in December 1976 in Las Vegas. After the show, Elvis's dressing room was crowded with friends and admirers. Vernon was talking to Elvis when suddenly he became very shaky. His breathing was labored and his face drained of color. He clutched his chest and Elvis caught him from collapsing while calling for Dr. Ganem in the next room. Dr. Ganem examined Vernon, then took him to the hospital, and Elvis, Larry, and the head of security, Dick Grobe, went too. Elvis came out and said, "Daddy had a mild heart attack. They want to keep him in the hospital tonight. Check him out some more." Elvis returned to his hotel suite and asked only Charlie Hodge, Ginger Alden, and Larry to join him in a private remote healing for Vernon. Elvis asked Larry to bring candles and incense into the room. Elvis then said, "There's only so much the doctors can do, then it's out of their hands, but we know how effective spiritual healing can be." He asked Larry to begin the healing with a prayer, then Elvis followed by reciting the Lord's Prayer. Larry said softly, "Just visualize light surrounding and penetrating Mr. Presley's body, bathing and soothing his entire being." Elvis said softly, "Visualize the blue light pervading every cell of Daddy's body and visualize the blue light healing his heart and every cell of his body." They held hands in a silent circle and entered a deep meditative state together. At the end, Elvis said, "Dear Lord, may others sick and troubled, wherever they are, receive your healing grace. And may we thank you now for healing my daddy. Thanks for your divine power." Then Elvis concluded his prayer as he always did. Amen, amen, amen. The next day, Vernon looked noticeably better with color back in his face. Larry was not surprised. Larry said, "Well, you're looking fit, Mr. Presley." Vernon said, "I'll tell you, Larry, I feel great. You know, I had a mild heart attack last night, but I'm sure feeling better today. The doctor said I'll do all right." Larry left it to Elvis to tell Vernon about the healing. A few days later, Elvis came out of his bedroom looking exhausted and distressed. He was in his bathrobe and was moving slowly. Then he plopped onto the sofa. He sat silently. He was sweating and clearly unwell before asking everyone except Larry to leave. Larry writes, "As soon as we were alone, Elvis looked at me with a deeply pained look in his eyes. His breathing grew labored. He stood up slowly, holding onto the sofa with one hand to steady himself, suddenly grabbing at the drapes to keep from falling. He turned quickly toward me, crying out, 'Lawrence, Lawrence, quick, help me to my bedroom.'" Larry rushed to help Elvis. They were both stumbling as he guided him into the bedroom, where Elvis collapsed helplessly onto the bed. Elvis said, This is it. I'm going out. Maybe Ganem gave me too much. I'm going." Larry held Elvis in his arms, and when he placed his palm over Elvis's heart, he could feel it pounding wildly. Larry said, "I'm calling for help, Elvis." Elvis begged, No, I'm leaving my body. I'm dying. Don't let me die alone." Larry says he panicked and he believed Elvis might be dying and he needed urgent medical help, but he was afraid to leave him alone. Larry was freaking out inside, but he tried to remain calm. He said, "You're not dying, Elvis. I won't leave you. You're going to live. Just listen to me. Breathe deep, Elvis. Breathe deep and slowly." Larry writes, "Still, his heart was striking my hand with the speed of a jackhammer. His throat made gurgling sounds, and his pupils rolled back as I cradled him in my arm. Stay with me. Listen to my voice." Larry, still trying to stay calm, said, "Relax, Elvis. Breathe deep from your diaphragm." But Elvis was very pale, and he was still sweating a lot. Larry kept repeating, "Relax. Breathe deep. Know that you're going to be all right. Relax." Larry says that although he appeared calm, he was terrified inside, but he believed God would not let Elvis die. Larry told Elvis, "Elvis, stay with me. Feel the life coming back into your body. Feel the heat from my hand. It's penetrating your heart. Feel the light spreading from your heart throughout your whole body." He was massaging Elvis's heart. He said, "You know you're going to be all right. You know God won't let you go. Lisa needs you. Your daddy needs you. We all need you. Feel the heat, Elvis. The light is healing you. Breathe slowly and deep. That's it." Elvis's heart finally began to slow, and he seemed to regain focus. Elvis said, Yeah, I feel the heat. I'm coming back. I'll be all right." The whole episode felt like an eternity to Larry, but it had only been a matter of 2 to 3 minutes. Elvis said, "Man, your hand felt like a red-hot iron. Whoa." He sat himself up against the pillows and then said, "Oh, Lawrence, I thought that was it. Thank God you were here. I can still feel the heat from your hand." Larry said, "Elvis, I have to let Dr. Ganem know what happened." Elvis said, "All right, but don't let Daddy know about this. It'd kill him." Then Elvis grinned and asked, "Is that your sweat or mine?" Larry's shirt was soaked through. Larry and Elvis eventually joined the others again, Elvis looking disheveled, and they noticed, but no one said anything. They had no idea that he had just gone through a frightening health crisis. Larry told Dr. Ganem about what happened, and the doctor said he would check on it later. Larry writes, quote, "In the last few years of Elvis's life, he increasingly suffered from a host of debilitating health conditions, and his state of health became a source of distress and continual conversation between us. I'm confident that Elvis could have lived longer if he had only used the knowledge that he possessed, not applying spiritual technology alone, but also by integrating and practicing the principles and insights replete in the various books on nutrition, health, and rejuvenation that I brought to him. This included Adele Davis's classic, Let's Get Well, The Book of Living Foods by Edmund Sekeli, and Become Younger by Norman W. Walker. Elvis understood so much of this intellectually, but seemed incapable of putting it into practice for himself." End quote. Larry says Elvis's doctor, he doesn't say which one here, even had discouraged him from taking daily natural vitamins and minerals. Larry told Elvis, "Take this power pack, Elvis. It will pick you up and give you some natural energy. I put in some extra E and a potent combination of the B complex, vitamin C, and some minerals. If you take these every day, they can help strengthen you and give you more energy." The doctor sneered, "That crap doesn't work. He doesn't need those. Get it the hell out of here." Larry says Elvis's doctor failed to truly help him and instead enabled his worsening dependence on prescription drugs. Sedatives for sleep, amphetamines to rouse him, Demerol, Tuinol, Percodan, Valium, and several other nefarious quick fixes. He says the prescription drugs Elvis was taking were addictive and, especially in combination, could be extremely dangerous or even deadly. Elvis was not using street drugs as was part of the, quote, drug culture of the 60s and 70s. His access came through licensed doctors who prescribed him whatever medications he wanted. Elvis trusted his doctors and believed they would only prescribe what was good for him, even though he knew more about medications than most people. He always kept the book, Physician's Desk Reference, on his nightstand. Larry writes, quote, Elvis's belief in and addiction to prescribed drugs was juxtaposed with his belief in the power of spiritual healing. He was convinced that the energy exchanged through the laying on of hands was a vital factor in correcting illness. He believed in the power of the mind to heal, to overcome any physical problems, and in his power to perform such healings. Still, some kind of disconnect existed that allowed him to ignore that power when it came to his own physical well-being, end quote. Elvis grew spiritually and intellectually, but he remained careless with his body, eating and taking whatever he wanted without considering the consequences. Larry says Elvis was not alone in this struggle. Many people are disconnected in body, mind, and spirit and lack full self-awareness in one area or another. He says Elvis's blind spot was his body. As his physical and emotional pain increased, he often said to Larry, "The spirit is willing, Lawrence, but the flesh is weak." There were times where Larry couldn't remain silent. He said, "Elvis, you need to be checked out thoroughly. You need medical help. Now, you have to get off those damn drugs. You know they're poison. They're killers. Elvis, you know they're killers." Larry says Elvis sensed he was nearing a crisis point and wanted to change his life, even though he knew the path ahead would be difficult. Larry writes, he finally woke up to the painful reality of his situation and acknowledged that without dramatic changes in his life, both personal and professional, he would not survive. Larry says that near the end of Elvis's life, they discussed ways for him to heal his body and spirit, including a plan to go to his favorite place, Hawaii. They even had a place picked out, Oahu. Larry says Elvis hoped to take an extended break in Hawaii to recover from years of touring and to turn his life around. Elvis felt inspired by the idea of resting and eating healthier and getting off, quote, all those damn pills they give me. Elvis said, "Larry, just one of my doses would wipe out an elephant. Man, if you were in my body, you'd feel like a wrecked jalopy right out of Demolition Derby. Believe me, I know exactly what's at stake." Elvis was excited about a healing break in Hawaii that would have him focused on fresh foods, juice, exercise, beach activities, and meditation. Larry says he and Elvis felt excited and hopeful about the Hawaii plan, like children waiting for summer vacation, and he still remembers it as a beautiful fantasy to this day. He says Elvis was also thinking about major career changes, including new management and returning to Hollywood as a serious actor in more meaningful films. He was ready for a clean sweep. Larry questions, was Elvis really serious about making dynamic and even painful changes? Had he lived longer, would he truly have gone to Hawaii and fulfilled everything that he said he wanted to do? He writes, I believe with all my heart that he would have followed through with his dream. Elvis was ready. This was the answer that he had searched for, that finally found the light of day. I had never seen him so focused and resolved for the arduous task ahead, no matter how overwhelming it appeared. Larry says, of course, Elvis was struggling with inner and outer pressures. Their late-night talks helped him build courage and stay committed to changing his life. Larry writes, tragically, forces against him proved to be too much, and Elvis lost his battle. There were many times in 1977, the year he died, that he could have acted on his newfound hope and determination. There's a lesson here for all of us. When clarity comes and you know what to do to enhance or even save your life or the lives of others around you, don't hesitate. Life is too precious and too precarious. Take action immediately. Despite Elvis's unhealthy habits and medication use, his spirit remained devoted to prayer and healing. But now, Elvis was the one who needed healing. Elvis said, you know, everyone thinks I'm just plain fat. They don't understand that it's fluid. My intestines don't function right, and I've got a spastic colon. My blood pressure shoots up to over 180 every night after a show. Hell, between that, my glaucoma, and all the rest, it's a miracle I'm still in one piece. Larry says people are born whole and full of potential, but life's pain, stress, abuse, and neglect can slowly drain their spirit and energy. He says the body is sacred and our choices can help shape our health and well-being. Larry writes, every day since Elvis's death, I have agonized over why his life was cut so short. Yet, in truth, I know the answer. When I set aside my emotions and allow my intellect to take over, I accept the reality that years of neglect, toxic damage caused by drugs, a diet of junk foods, and an exhausting and devitalizing lifestyle all contributed to Elvis losing his life so early. Larry knows he helped Elvis, but he still wonders if he could have done more. He concludes that we cannot truly save another person, but we can help them find the strength to save themselves. Elvis could no longer be saved, but the rest of us still have the chance to change, heal, and save our own lives. One day they were on Elvis's plane, the Lisa Marie, weeks before his death. Larry was drying Elvis's hair, and he saw Elvis was staring deeply at himself in the mirror. This wasn't new. He'd been doing it since the 60s, just searching for any tiny flaw. Larry says Elvis still studied himself in the mirror the same way, but now he was very aware of how much he had changed. He says near the end, Elvis needed nightly healing rituals no matter where they were, home, hotel, plane. They'd sit together for prayer, meditation, and visualizing blue light before or after shows. Larry says that although Elvis was exhausted and ill and afraid his voice might fail him, his singing remained powerful and beautiful until the end. One day Elvis said, "Lawrence, all I know right now is a man's got to do what he was created for, and I was created to entertain people. And I'm going out here on that stage no matter what, and my body really hurts. Man, I'm a wreck. Please, I need some energy. Please just lay your hands on me and use the old blue light, because the kind of help I need can't be found in any doctor's black bag. What I need is to return to the real source of healing, so lay your hands on me." They stood there and they prayed quietly, and Larry placed his hands on Elvis's forehead, throat, and heart. It made him remember his own childhood healing with his father. That night, Elvis quietly prayed before going on stage, bowing his head with folded hands as a salutation to God. The crowd's excitement became intense as Elvis's dramatic opening music began, and when Elvis appeared on stage, the audience erupted with wild cheers. Elvis came alive on stage, pouring his bottled-up emotions of love for his fans into his performance. He connected deeply with the audience through love and presence and a voice that still had its magic. Larry writes, "As he took his final bow in his blue sequin suit, the crowd gave him a standing ovation. The love Elvis shared with his fans was palpable. It was not by chance that Elvis had chosen a blue jumpsuit on this night when he was feeling so low. He had a special affinity with the color blue in his personal life, and his healings and his career were also associated with it, long before he knew about the blue light that had surrounded his birth. One of his first hit songs was Blue Moon of Kentucky, then Blue Suede Shoes, Blue Christmas, Blue River, and Indescribably Blue. He also sang Blueberry Hill, Mean Woman Blues, Blue Moon, Milk Cow Blues Boogie, A Mess of Blues, Something Blue, Steamroller Blues, and When My Blue Moon Turns to Gold Again. His last album was Moody Blue. Two of his biggest pictures were Blue Hawaii and GI Blues. The last song Elvis ever sang as he played the piano at Graceland just a few hours before his death was Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. That's it for part 5. Stay tuned for part 6, which is titled Through My Eyes, 1976 to 1977. See you then.